Hello and welcome to the Shock Your Potential podcast. I am your host, Michael Sherlock. Each one of us holds great potential, and tapping into that potential is my passion and my mission. Shock Your Potential is a global leadership training company dedicated to creating positive, productive, and profitable workplaces. We develop, nurture, train, and guide leaders at all levels and at all points in their career. Through this podcast, I get to interview amazing leaders who are shocking their own potential and the potential of those around them. Learn more about us today at shockyourpotential.com and shockyourpotentialpodcast.com. And don't forget to check out my 2 best-selling books, Tell Me More, How to Ask the Right Questions and Get the Most Out of Your Employees, and Sales Mixology, Why the Most Potent Sales and Customer Experiences Follow a Recipe for Success. Join us now as we meet another great guest. And don't forget, subscribe, rate, and like us today. So I am so excited to have my guest on today because he was actually my very first guest with my launch of this podcast. And we're going to talk about some things, talk a little bit about what we talked about last time about gamification in sales. But we're going to talk also about retail and the changing landscape of the retail world today. So joining me today is Michael Dahan, and he is heading up a new organization called Retail Answers. He has a wealth of experience in the retail realm, and we are going to break it down a little bit. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining me again.
Well, thank you for having me, Michael.
It's such a great, we have such great conversations every time we talk. So, let's talk about this big, kind of the elephant in the room in retail, and that is the effect of how people purchase today and whether they go into brick and mortar stores and what's their buying experience, because there's so much happening in this landscape. As we both know, we're also seeing stores close left and right in that, because it's so competitive in a vastly different way. So, let's just toss it out there. What are your initial thoughts?
So, yes, a lot is happening. It's a very fluid environment. People talk about the retail apocalypse. What I like, the way I like to characterize it is something said that to me. I thought it was spot on. Retail is not dead. Boring retail is, and definitely mediocre retail is. Mm-hmm. With the advent of online sales, the convenience of online sales, the only reason people would go to a brick and mortar store is for the all-important, and this is kind of the buzzword of the day, the customer experience. Mm-hmm. Without the customer experience, there is no brick and mortar retail, because nothing beats buying something that is not exciting online in your PJs.
So true.
You don't need to, no effort needed. What people really enjoy is the customer experience, mm-hmm. depending on what type of purchase, but fashion is certainly one of them. Where the retailer has to provide something that will really bring an added value to the purchase.
Well, it's so true because it's so easy. I have to admit, with my clothes, many times I'm buying online, but for different reasons. Number one, I usually don't have time to go kind of enjoy the shopping experience. Number two, I would rather be able to try clothes on in my own home, in my own, environment, which feels a little safer and a little less daunting than the dressing rooms. But I'm going to talk about a dressing room experience in a minute. Then I can return. So I'm one of those that has abused that part of the system, right, without a doubt.
So I guess the challenge then is to get to offer whatever brand of stores or maybe even a small mom and pop shop will catch your eye because they will offer something different, yes, than that experience that you have. So I think the customer experience is the name of the game right now, and it involves a lot of things. Mm. It's the way the store looks, obviously. It's the product offering, but it's also the way you are greeted and mm-hmm. the way you are engaged by the people who, after everything is said and done, are salespeople.
Yes.
and whether they are able to engage you in a way that will make the experience pleasant, or if you feel basically harassed or overwhelmed and don't want to deal with that experience. And that's really the challenge today. What really interests me, and that's what we try to address at Retail Answers Consulting, is those companies who do come up with the right customer experience. They're a chain, their life, there is an existential threat from online sales and competition. So they have crafted this great customer experience. They say they've hopefully done their homework. They know what their customers like. They know what they don't like. So they've really crafted the right mix of the way the store looks, the product that they offer, and the way their salespeople engage their customers. The challenge today is to be able to duplicate this customer experience
absolutely.
In all of their stores,
yes,
consistently, day after day, in a way that's not diluted because of the nature, the kind of old-fashioned structure of those retail organizations. Most retail organizations, especially the large ones that have 1,000 stores, 2,000 stores, will deal with a very layered operational structure. Mm-hmm. They'll have regional directors who will supervise area managers who will supervise 10 stores, yep. And you have this tree, and you craft that message, and you imagine basically your product that you're offering to the customers, and it's being taught to the regional directors who are teaching it to the area managers and so forth. And by the time the store manager trains, hopefully, their sales associate, who very often are part-timers, sometimes making minimum wage, not necessarily on commission.
Right.
Well, it's like a bad game of telephone. Right. And by the time the message gets to the person who actually talks to your customer,
it's watered down.
It's watered down.
Yeah.
Or it's diluted, or it's forgotten, or it's not. And
or
it's
not even changed along the way, because like a game of telephone, one word that you hear or one thing that you may emphasize can change throughout that tree. So when you get to the end result, you don't have the same impact as the people who said, but that's our message and that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And it's very easy to spot.
Yeah. Oh.
Every time you walk into a store and then somebody says behind a stack of jeans that they're folding, they say, "Let me know if I can help you."
Yes.
Well, that was not the intention originally of the brand.
Yeah.
The brand didn't envision that. That's level 0. There's no engagement there. It's somebody hiding.
Or worse yet, they're not even folding jeans. They're on their phone.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, because yes. I see that often.
Yes.
And it impacts your whole experience. It's interesting, because I say, when people ask me what I do, I say I'm a speaker on leadership, sales, and the customer experience. And often I talk about the juncture between the three. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, you mean customer service?" I'm like, no, the customer experience, right. Because it is so much more.
Absolutely. Customer service is somebody on the phone telling you about the return policy.
Right, exactly. and when you think about this, I love, I have this little hashtag, Secret Shopper Michael, and I love to experience different places, but there's two that, for me, really embody some of the things that you said, and that is, you walk in and it's everything. It's the visual. It's all of your senses are hit. And the first one I think of is Lush. And it's, we're here in Washington, D.C., where you are based, and I'm here to speak at a conference. So yesterday, before dinner, I walked through the mall where my hotel is. And it was, the hotel or the mall was buzzing, which was really exciting. Not all stores were buzzing. Many of them were very slow, but the food court was buzzing with a lot of, young people that are in town. But the Lush store was packed. And there is something about the way it's designed, the smells that come out of it, the way you walk in, the way they, kind of move you as a customer through. The customer experience from the sales associates have never disappointed me. Ever. Not once have I met one person in a Lush store that disappointed me, which is amazing. But I had to go in there yesterday. I didn't need anything. I just spent a couple $100. But just feeling the buzz and feeling the vibe, it makes you as a consumer want to go in there and experience. Right. And it was hard for me to walk out without anything, because I normally do. But I don't think anybody else who walked in there walked out without a purchase.
Right. And so what's very interesting is how are they able to duplicate and reproduce that experience consistently.
Yeah.
And and I think it's an investment on obviously the people, the front of the house, so to speak. But there needs to be a way to be consistently offering the same product. And a lot of people who are coming from the internet, there's this new phenomenon of brands that started online who are now opening stores. They have no patience for the way retail has been managed since the 80s.
Right.
So I think that's where the challenge is. That's where we work with chains to reclaim that direct connection with the sales associate. The training, the engagement. I think everything that's been applied to online marketing and social media marketing, where you look for engagement of your audience, applies to that population, to that category of employees, where you cannot have a long-term strategy that involves millions of dollars of investment on product, on marketing, on everything that is absolutely needed for a successful organization. You cannot have all of this and not have the direct connection with the sales associate. So I think that's one of the things I really enjoy working on, and we've had great success.
Yeah, and that is key. And you and I have discussed this many times. Is that oftentimes, and I don't want this to sound negative, because you and I know that retail relies on that person who is a minimum wage sales associate in most cases. In many cases, not earning any commission. There are still some businesses that do, but most of them don't. And not everybody stays at minimum wage. But you're talking about a workforce that. How much engagement are they going to want to have if you're not finding ways to engage them? And it's not just monetary engagement, because Lush has the same, setup. They're not hiring at vastly different salaries than anywhere else, but there's something in that mix, of how they have connection with their employees. I haven't gotten to all the roots of it yet, but I'm trying to dig away the layers, because it fascinates me. But everyone who works there loves the products. They believe in the mission, so that ties it together. But if you go to work at any other store, there's that sense of, well, yeah, I have a manager, a store manager, a regional manager, a divisional manager, a vice president manager, all these people that lead me, but nobody really seems to care about me.
Right. What we have found is, and I work with a lot of people in that space, where having a direct connection with the sales associate through technology is the way to go, but that's just a conduit. What do you do with that direct connection? It's the initial training that you offer directly on somebody's tablet or phone. It's the way you craft it, and that's where you and I had a discussion about the gamification of training. But not just the training, really. It's the engagement throughout the life cycle,
the ongoing
of that employment, and hopefully they move on to maybe manage a store. But very often it's very often a temporary gig. People go to college or find a job in the industry that they trained for. So retail is very often, not always, but very often a temporary career.
Yeah.
So it's almost built in that it's going to be, sales associate, the turnover for sales associates that are not on commission in the United States is above 80% a year.
Wow.
But it's kind of built in. It's not that anybody's doing a bad job.
No,
it's not that they're bad employees. It's just the nature.
It's the nature of the job.
So you have a small window and how to best utilize people's enthusiasm, the initial enthusiasm they have for whatever brand they want. Oh, I love this brand. I want to work for them. Or I love those shoes. I want to work there because I love.
Because I'm going to get a discount.
Yeah, exactly. So there is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
How do you leverage this?
Yeah.
Even if it's 6 months, a year, hopefully more, maybe hopefully offer them great people progression. But that position of a sales associate is enormously important. There are the people who are speaking to the customers. and it cannot be forgotten.
So this is a great point to think about the percentage of turnover, because you're right, it's nobody's fault. It's the nature of the game. But as you were talking, I was thinking about how exhausting that must be for the store managers, the area managers, the regional managers, because you are in a constant state of flux. And especially if you've got a great employee and you don't want to lose them, and you're probably going to lose them at some point in time, how do you kind of keep your focus and keep connections with them, but provide those ongoing touches, the trainings, the development, the people things that not only make the people better in their jobs while they're there, but also what kind of an impact can you have on them for the rest of their career? Yeah. Because if you really do, then you also extend brand loyalty beyond that job at whatever, at White House Black Market or Chico's or even Lush. How do you make somebody continue to love the brand despite the tenure of their employment with you?
Absolutely, and I think the parallel is very important. The old saying was, the customer is king. Well, now a lot of companies are saying, no, really the employee is king, and if the employees are kings and treated really well and engaged in a great manner, then the customers will benefit from that. And it's the same thing. A bad customer experience can really damage the brand, or a bad employment experience can really damage the brand as well.
Yeah.
So it's irresponsible for brands who will invest on everything from logistics, supply chain, logistics, marketing, to not really pay attention to that critical part of the process, of the end-to-end process. So I think there's a lot to be done. People are waking up to this notion. And you said it's exhausting to have to and with an exhausting process like this, fatigue comes in, and that's why you get lukewarm reception. You don't get the engagement, because retail is tough. Retail is 7 days a week. The stores. I used to work with somebody who said retail is 3 walls and a window, and it restarts every day.
Yeah.
And if you don't bring the excitement every day, and it cannot be the responsibility of a store manager to bring the excitement every day. They have to have the tools to do so.
Yep. And
that's where I think there's a lot to be done, and that's where I'm very excited to work with clients on. We're changing things, and usually only by optimizing processes that are already in place. But just by bringing them, by digitizing old processes, you are giving them a new life, and you are giving everybody knows what has to be done. A store has to be clean, it has to be well organized, people have to be trained.
Right.
If you bring a new tool that allows you to do that consistently, but also to do more by bringing contests within the stores, with other stores of the chain, incentive programs that are not always with monetary rewards, can be with additional employee discount, can be with store credits, but also just pure gamification.
Yeah.
If I do more training, I'll go from level silver to level gold. And what will that give me? Well, first of all, it will give me that daily dose of dopamine that gamers know very well. They go to the next level, and obviously somebody who has done more training online on their own has been more successful at the training. And we like to talk about micro training as opposed to those long drawn out videos that I think nobody watches.
Yeah, most of the time they put them on play in the background and do whatever.
And I don't think it does anybody any good. You tailor training through micro training with short videos on one subject, with a little quiz at the end to make sure that you understand it. You can replay it and then just do it until it's sunk in. And people now are ready for the next level. So it can be product training, new collection in the store. It can be a new brand, or we worked with No Face a lot. They have wonderful training material, but it's on their website, and it's incumbent to every retail organization to get their people to watch those. So there are a few ways to do it, but the best way really is to bring that content directly in somebody's hands.
Right to them, because that's where they're living when
they need it.
Yeah, I mean that's where we all live today. We can't escape it. And I'm a huge proponent of this. But I'm also thinking, too, it's interesting. Sometimes when companies, all kinds of companies, have training programs, you're right, it's this big kind of download of data that you don't know whether it sticks, and it's over and done and we move on instead of a constant training. So there's a sense of, okay, I've done that, now it's done. Instead of a constant engagement where you keep people's eye on the ball that you need them to keep the eye on, and then they know that this is serious.
Right.
And they go, oh, well, I've got to do this. Where we put our focus and our time and attention is where we will see results with it. Even if people grumble a little in the beginning, especially if it's something different, if you're giving them tools to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do it constantly, they will start to rise to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's twofold. Feedback on performance is extremely important. A sales associate is there and they're being judged, the store is being judged on a few key performance indicators. But very rarely do organizations share those KPIs with all the way to the sales.
True.
Sometimes maybe the store manager will take upon themselves to share that information, but it's not always the case. So let's say that
sometimes the way it's shared is not always useful or well received by the front staff, because they can see it as I'm either winning or losing, rather than we're in a state of trying to achieve.
Right. So if you give people, if you give a store the goal of having a conversion rate, 1,000 people coming through that store on a Saturday, and we want you guys to have a 10% conversion rate, 100 transactions that day. Okay, so that's the goal for the store. If the sales associate can see real time or on a daily basis, real time is better,
yes.
the conversion rate, they can adjust what they're doing. That's why they say we shouldn't be folding when the people walking into the store, we should address them. So I think immediate feedback on performance is very important. It should be shared with the people on the sales floor. And then the training that is delivered on a regular basis, but also dynamically. If a store consistently does not reach their, for instance, conversion rate goal, every Saturday they're at 4%, not 10%, like the goal said. Well, then maybe everybody should be pushed on their device the training about a refresher course on how to engage customer.
Right, there you go.
That's the initial training, the onboarding is not sufficient. And we find that the efficacy of having ongoing engagement, and it always goes back to that, is really tenfold compared to kind of the old-fashioned structure, and the ability also for sales associate to share their success.
Yes. And to see,
I had a great transaction today. Michael Schroeder came to my store and she loved everything I showed her, and very often what we see, people take a picture of the receipt. Look, I made a $300 transaction today.
Very good.
And post it on the internal kind of social media for the company. And that's great, because then it's a complete loop.
And then you see the direct correlation.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of something else too, when we talk about gamification and kind of leveling up or getting badges types of things, which we do know has a true dopamine effect on people. So you have a good reason to want to do that. As you were talking, I was thinking about how often employees in a different retail market that I worked in prior to this, but still retail sales in the healthcare field, when people asked me for a performance review, they'd say, hey, when am I going to have my performance review? I knew that it meant I want to know if I'm going to get more money. That's one thing. And I want to know that you like what I'm doing. I need some validation. And in my industry, we didn't have a great system for really routine performance reviews, mostly because there weren't going to be a lot of performance merit raises, because it was a very commission-based system. However, I'm thinking, in the retail sector, you may not always, I think there's in some retail stores, retail companies, there's a better system for merit increases based on time and rating. And yet still there's that gap between, I'm only going to be a sales associate, or I might be a manager in training, or these different elements where you feel like there's a gap. And so if you're saying, but I achieved the platinum level on my training, and I did this X, Y, and Z, people have something tangible for their resumes, really emotionally tangible, because you've achieved something different, but ongoing whether or not you're on point or not.
Absolutely. And it's not just the training, it's the achievements that they've had. I won the contest for best salesperson for back to school, for instance, in my store or in my region. And it's surprising to me. Large national chains usually will have a great incentive program in place for the store manager, or maybe a little bit, maybe the assistant manager will be part of that. But very often not for the sales associates. I remember talking to somebody who said, "Oh yeah, the store I work at, we made our quarterly objective. The manager was very happy and congratulated us." And I said, "Oh, that's great. So why was she happy?" "Well, she had a bonus." "And what did you get?" "Well, we had a little note from the district supervisor."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, what kind of note?" And she said, "Oh, I took a picture." Because she didn't appreciate it, she took a picture of it. It was a Post-it note that had been left on the bulletin board in the stockroom.
Oh boy!
It's and this is a brand that's doing well, that's doing a lot of things really, really well. But that part of the motivation and engagement of the sales associate has been farmed out locally. And then there's a bit of a leap of faith on whether the local management is good enough or has even time to focus. Retail is tough. Retail, you move product around, you worry about loss prevention, and the last thing that comes in the conversation on the table is the well-being of the sales associate. It's very often. Obviously, I'm making generalizations,
however,
but it happens. And so that's where there are a lot of ways now, new tools, and new ways to use those tools that I think we can really bridge the gap.
I want to tell you a little bit about an experience that I had yesterday. So I told you about walking into the Lush store in the mall. I'm staying in Pentagon City area, so I don't know what the name of that mall is. I should know.
Pentagon City Mall.
Pentagon City Mall. Well, there you go. I got that. So that Lush store I was very impressed with. Then I was just kind of wandering around. So I went up to another level and I went into Altered State. And I haven't been in an Altered State store in a long time, but I've always enjoyed it because it's very nicely laid out. The look when you walk in, the way the clothes are hung, and how outfits are styled. I don't fit in everything. It's a kind of a younger woman's store than I am now that I'm a woman of a certain age. But I always like it. I'm very drawn to it. So a couple things that I just wanted to share with you because I thought they were amazing experiences. Number one, I was greeted by two different people kind of when I was wandering around, but they had been helping other people. So I didn't hold that against them that they didn't catch me immediately when I got in. But they were very engaged. When the first gal caught up to me, I was in the sale area, and she said, "Now, just so you know, here's, the smalls are here, mediums are here, larges are there." So she was helping me direct. And right about that time, the other gal came and I had a couple things. She said, "Would you like a room?" I said, "Sure." So she asked my name. So, just their engagement was very comfortable. They were paying attention to where I was. They were asking me, good specific questions. And so that was nice. I enjoyed that. When I got to the dressing room, I was blown away because I think of all the years that I went into Altered States, I never went into a dressing room. I either would buy something and hope it fit or whatever. Because I told you I don't like to try on clothes, and it didn't work out well for me yesterday. But the dressing room itself, it's large, it's nicely appointed, it's got really cute touches, like everything from the paint on the walls to little decorations. There was a huge bench with pillows on it. And then a couple little tiny flyers that talked about a couple different sale things that they had going on. And it was so nicely put together that I took a picture of it. Now I'm thinking I need to go back and actually do a little video of it because it was really, really engaging. So when I came out, Nothing fit. And I said to the gal, there's some days you just shouldn't try on clothes. She goes, well, in that case, don't forget to check out our jewelry sale because the bracelets and the earrings are all under $10. And I went, I'm over there. And I bought a few different things, but I was so impressed with how they talked to me, how they made eye contact, how they were engaging even when they were folding things. They were very personable. So I made a note to that. I gave him one of my little Secret Shopper Michael cards that I have that says, you've done a great job. You've impressed me. And I will write about these ladies on my blog this week because to me, those experiences still make the difference. However, here's the caveat. The whole time I was in there, and I was probably in there for 20 minutes, I think there were only 3 other shoppers. It's a busy mall. It's in a great location. There's lots of foot traffic in this mall, but no one was in there. And I think that, given the challenges that we still face, beautiful store, great customer interaction, great customer experience, wonderful product, everything perfect, not enough traffic. Yeah. And I think that we're facing that everywhere. So we can do a lot of things right, but how are we going to get more people to engage?
I don't know that we'll ever get more people in the malls anymore.
Yeah.
It's just a very, very difficult place to bring traffic to. For the longest time, the model was you have anchors in the mall and they bring the traffic, and everybody in between just benefits from that foot traffic. And today, most of those anchors are in dire straits. I work with a company that has a store in the mall here in Virginia, not far from here in Virginia. Their anchors are Sears, Macy's, and JCPenney.
Oh boy! And 2 out of those 3.
2 out of those 3 are in really, really are on life support.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to that mall? I think more than the retail apocalypse, what's on the horizon, or very close to us, probably closer than the horizon, is the mall apocalypse. Because there's just a mechanical effect of what's going to happen when 1 or 2 of those anchors fail. Most of the tenants, especially the national chains in that mall, have a clause in their lease that say that they'll pay 50% less rent if they lose an anchor, or especially 2.
Oh, I did not know that, but that makes sense.
So it makes a lot of sense, because when those things were written in leases in malls by people who knew what they were doing, nobody thought that a Macy's would ever be in jeopardy, or a Lord & Taylor.
Right.
And so there's going to be a domino effect where the malls are really, really going to hurt. So I think we're back to really, really well thought out street stores, town centers, the outdoor malls, and things like that. And I think every mall is different, and somehow there's just going to be it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath. That's for sure.
And I think so. And that's what, I thought it was such a shame, because when you do everything right, when you are doing things right, you still have that challenge to face. Right. Yet I got to admit, these gals, they were not daunted by it. There were a lot of other stores that I walked by that there was no foot traffic, and the poor, sales associate is just standing there like this, going.
And the only way, and so now the challenge for that brand is how do we maintain this over time?
Yeah.
And how do we engage those young ladies that did such a good job, so that they keep the fatigue does not set. Yep. And they can still provide that great customer experience, moving, weather the storm, so to speak, and it's the challenge. It's the challenge. That's the one challenge that I think we have great opportunity to tackle. It is now the time to tackle that challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
For the longest time, retailers have, I remember when I started in retail 20 years ago, the name of the game was how much product can we get to the stores, because they'll sell it. Yeah. So it was all about logistics,
right,
and the supply chain, and working with the brands to get more product. Today, it's just not the challenge. The challenge is, will we get people to come to our stores, because we will provide them with more than just a product. That product they can get anywhere.
And now the flip side is inventory is so challenging because the more you have, the greater risk you are,
Absolutely.
as opposed to if you don't have enough, that you have a greater risk that you're going to lose the sale.
Oh yeah, and that's an age old challenge for retailers, and that's usually pretty well managed. And technology has been used in that realm for 20 years.
Yeah.
I've visited distribution center of regional chains, not national chains, regional chains with less than 100 stores at the time, and they had a distribution center where they had put millions of dollars in doing it right.
Oh,
and
so
the time to market for them, they were a specialty, they didn't sell their own product, they sold brands. Time to market was down to a day or two. By the time they got a shipment, it would reach their stores the next day. The retailers are doing this really well now. Those who have not mastered inventory management and they're gone. Yeah. So the next frontier now is the front of the house, and that's where I think it's really time to make an impact.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I know that you're working with a specific software that helps many of these different aspects. Can you talk a little bit about what things can you target with specialty software that can help keep these brands and these companies going and begin to thrive again?
Yes. So I work with a couple of companies, one especially who is very well established in Europe and is starting their operations in the United States. I'm a senior advisor with them about a couple of things. The US market is one, but also my experience in retail is really on that subject. What they do is they provide a series of apps that helps the retailer optimize and digitize processes that have been in place for a very long time. The dreaded store visit by the organization, for instance. It's what we call a pain in the consult. What are the pains that we want to address? One of them, and that one's painful, is the store visit. You have an organization that counts on the regional directions to director to correctly allocate their area managers to make sure that stores that need it are visited, and what happens during the visit. So usually they have a checklist that they will go through. But very often, my experience, the second the area manager gets to the store, they get sidetracked by seemingly more important matters. Oh, my staff quit, or I don't have enough people today, and you need to help me. I haven't had a performance review in a year or so. And the store visit goes by the wayside. Yeah. Well, but the problem is that the store visit takes care of some mundane stuff that is absolutely necessary to that customer experience. Yeah. That beautiful dressing room that you were talking about can be trashed. Yeah. It can have papers on the floor. The pillows can be on the floor. If nobody's paying attention to the way the store looks, you cannot deliver that customer experience.
Well, and on the flip side too, I mean, I had a friend who she was, I guess, a merchandiser for a retailer, and she said, there was constantly this times where she's like, I have to go in and work all night. I'm going in at 10 o'clock when the store closes. I won't get home at 6 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the morning. I said, why? You guys are you revamping the store? What do you got going? No, we have a site visit coming. And so we've got to fix everything that's wrong. And my question always to her was, why are you fixing it the day before the regional comes in? Why aren't you maintaining that?
That's why the store visit, the way it's done right now, or other aspects of purely operational stuff in retail, it needs to evolve. It's not enough. You want a better, it's not just control, a better feedback loop on the way the store should look. Yeah. So you need to be able to give instructions and directives or set a standard. But there needs to be constant feedback, not just once a month or once a quarter with a visit. Constant feedback on compliance. Right. And it needs to be done in a very quick manner, and the data from those processes needs to go back up.
Right. And so part of that can be worked with the app then?
So the app is a real-time, instead of having a checklist on a piece of paper or very often it's on a spreadsheet, and they fill out each question, maybe sometimes give a grade, and those spreadsheets are emailed or WhatsApped to the regional director who now has to compile all that information. And if you're lucky, once a quarter you kind of get a picture, or once a month you get a picture of where the stores stand on the housekeeping stuff, the cleanliness, the way it's merchandised, the order, the stock room is in order, things like that. What the app does is that the checklist is on the app. So the area manager walks into a store, checks. The first thing is, how does the window look? Take a picture. Boom. Take a picture. Takes a picture. Walks in. Is it clean? Take a picture of under the racks or whatever. They take a picture. And every answer that they give, or the grade that they give, goes up into real time.
In real time, right.
Into a dashboard. So a regional director can see that their X number of stores are more or less in compliance, and those that are not, they can take action immediately. And also you can, on the dashboard, you can correlate the grading of the stores visits with the number of visits.
Right.
So now you can allocate your resources. A question that comes up every time: how do we make sure that our area managers go where they're needed?
Yes.
So it can be about sales. Very often what will happen is that area managers will focus on the high volume stores in their district. They'll make sure that those work, because those are like the cash cow of the region.
Yeah, because that's your 80%.
Right.
Yeah, your 80-20
But the problem is that the smaller stores, or the ones that are not performing as well, without the attention, will not get a chance to rise up. And so I think that dashboard at a regional level or at the corporate level is extremely important. The second thing that we address with this real-time feedback is the implementation of, for instance, the very important visual merchandising directive. So the company rolls out a new collection or a new window. On this Saturday morning, we want all our stores, our 2,500 stores, to have the same window all across the United States. And the way it happens right now, different companies use different means. I know a national brand who sends very well-made merchandising directives with 3D renderings of the tables, the way they need to look, with pictures of the new product for the new collection, for instance, with all the references, and beautiful inserts that go into a binder. They UPS that to all their stores.
Oh, geez.
All like 1,500 stores, I believe. And that's a great document.
Right.
And
beautiful.
everybody I asked for, they said, we have everything we need to do it right. And then my question is, well, how do they know you did it right? Oh, well, sometimes we have a visit, at the quarterly visit they can't. But the question is, it's not the quarterly visit or the monthly visit. The question is, that Saturday morning, how many of my stores are ready the way we wanted them? So what we do is, that mission, instead of being UPS'd or sent by email that needs to be printed or just looked on the screen, whatever, we send it through as a mission on the app in question. So the store has a tablet, or they use a phone to do it. They walk around with the exact same material, by the way. That beautiful material that was created can be used on a tablet.
Yes.
They walk around, they implement the directive. It's ready. The first question is, did you implement the directive? Yes. Take a picture. I take a picture. Real time goes back up to the regional level or the corporate level. Usually the regional level, somebody will look at it, say, oh, it's great, I approve it.
Right.
Or, no, wait, here, I circle on my screen the mannequin that should be farther to the right, or flip those two mannequins by drawing things on the picture that they sent me. It goes back, they get it back real time. Right. Oh, I need to change it. And now you're in compliance.
And now I can say all my 2,500 stores have the exact same.
Exactly. And not only can I do this as a visual merchandiser, director, or VP of merchandising, but I can also turn around and on that Monday morning corporate meeting, show everybody I report to that it's been done.
Absolutely.
Whereas today it takes a week,
Well, even if you had everybody try and prove it by taking a picture, then as a manager, you still have to go through and scroll through every picture. Yeah.
Your emails, your
text, however they're coming
exactly.
in. Instead of having it housed in one format that you can also then use to track success over time and identify training issues and identify problems.
It's a great tool. I really love that tool. They've listened to retailers. I've interacted with them a lot as well on that subject. The dashboard that you see shows you a map of your territory, of for instance, the United States, and you can see with different colors all your compliance stores, all your stores that are still pending. You can see the reasons why it didn't work, and you can push micro training on things that need to be addressed. For instance, did you implement the window? No. What happened? What was the problem? And there are only a few things. I was missing mannequins. I didn't know how to hook up, to hang the poster behind the mannequins, or I was missing product, things like that. It's only a finite number of. I didn't have enough time, things like that. If you answer, I didn't know how to hang the poster, well, here's a little video on how, it's a little tricky. I've done it. there's some hardware that you need to know how to open. But here's a little video on how to do it. Oh, great. And now I'm compliant.
Now, there you go. And so you can adapt from a corporate standpoint. If you have 10 people that come back and said, I didn't know how to hang it, then right then you have to create the video.
Right. Next time around, you better be ready for that problem.
Exactly. Or can you tackle it right now and still hit your targets?
And the reason I love this is because, first of all, it addresses the pain I was talking about that retailer feels with store compliance, compliance to standards in general, and store execution of things that need to happen. If you roll out a new collection, you need to have all your stores ready. And those things are the foundation of delivering that customer experience. If those things don't happen, even if you have the best trained sales associates, you would not have had the same experience if that dressing room was trashed. And it's funny, I've interviewed somebody who works in retail, and I said, what don't you like about retail at all? He's worked in retail 15 years. And he said, I don't like when people think of us as butlers. Oh. Or sometimes we have customers who will drop stuff where they stand.
That's so true.
And a store on a busy day can be trashed in a minute.
Easy.
So those things, compliance to standards, store execution of marketing directives, VM, visual merchandising, those things, those are mundane. There are things that are not, sexy to talk about at a corporate level. You'd rather talk about the new collection, the new hires, or whatever. But they're the foundation of the customer experience.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
As you were talking, I was thinking about one time I was looking at sweaters in a store, and I was trying very hard not to move them, and finally I had to pull one open to see, what it would look like in my size. And so then afterward I was trying to fold it the exact way it was, and this guy came up and he goes, I'll do that for you, don't worry about it. I go, I know you have a lot on your plate. I opened it up. I want to get it right back. He goes, do you want to work here? Well, goodness, we have talked about so much, and I know we could keep talking for hours. I think we might have to break this into two. But there's just a wealth of information. I'm so glad that you and I continue to have this dialogue, because retail and sales and the opportunity in the future really can still exist today. Yes, we have challenges. Yes, we have a huge impact on online shopping. Yes, we have challenges with traffic in malls, but there are ways to combat this. There are ways to keep retail in the realm, because people do want to have that experience. Yeah. There are still people that want to shop that way regardless of what it is. And I know you're going to continue to impact it positively. So anybody who's listening or watching and they want to reach you, I know we'll have all the information in the show notes, but what's the best way for them to find you?
So they can email me at michael@retail-answers.com or go on my website, www.retail-answers.com. Retail-answers.com.
Mr. Dahan, it was a pleasure speaking with you today again.
Well, from one Michael to another Michael, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's always a pleasure.
And we will be keeping an eye out on what he's doing. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Shock Your Potential. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and like our podcast. And for more information, find us at shockyourpotential.com and shockyourpotentialpodcast.com.